everyone. I wanted to share a presentation with you that I did tonight for the Network for Inland Empire School Librarians, which is a library group in California. I literally just minutes ago completed the presentation with them, and I wanted to re-record it for my YouTube channel because this is super, super important information. I feel really fortunate as a librarian that I had two really strong library directors when I was in Texas as a librarian, and they trained me well in how to deal with book challenges. This was not something I really got in school when I was working on my master's. This is something that I got from my library coordinators, and I think a lot of librarians do not have this information. So I wanted to give you some tools because when we get a book challenge at school, whether it's a formal challenge or an informal challenge, it's really easy to feel personally attacked. It may be that it's actually a personal attack, and you need to have some tools and a plan ready for when you deal with this, because you may not have dealt with it yet, but you will. It's coming. I had multiple over my career, and you're going to as well. So if you're new, welcome to the library. I wanted to start off with this quotation from the American Library Association, that the freedom to read is essential to our democracy. And guys, right now, this is really under attack in the US. We are having laws passed that are extremely concerning about keeping books off the shelves, particularly books that deal with LGBT topics and also with Black history. So we need to protect these, and we need to make them available to our students because they are really important for students to see themselves in these books and know that we support them. And getting rid of those books in the library is not very supportive of those students. So I'm going to give you some tools tonight to deal with that so that it's not quite so difficult and scary. You guys are really on the front lines. So just briefly, I am a librarian. I have a master's degree in library science. Went to North Texas, University of North Texas. I worked for 10 years as a librarian in Texas, and before that I was a certified teacher. I taught 7th grade English. Then I went overseas and lived in China and was a librarian there for the next 5 years. I was a head librarian at both schools. One was in Suzhou and one was in Shanghai. And so I have a lot of experience. I've opened new libraries. I've done genre. I've written articles about it on Mrs. Reader Pants, which is readerpants.net. And I started Mrs. Reader Pants in 2011 to help new librarians, particularly new librarians, because there's just not, like, you go to school and you learn stuff, but it's a lot of theory and it's not real world. So back in 2011 when I started, there was not much out there for new librarians, so I thought I'd start one myself. There's more now, and I'll share some resources with you. This is my contact information. Please feel free to use that as you need. This is my school in Suzhou. It's a picture of my school library. Very pretty, isn't it? I was proud of this one. Okay, these are some headlines that I just pulled today. These are all recent, within the last, a week or so. You've seen the headlines. If you've turned on the news, opened any internet news article, you've probably seen these headlines over the last couple of years. It's really, really ramped up. So librarians are on the front line of this. And if you're not a librarian, but you work in a library, you're on the front lines as well. That noise is my dog, so apologies. Okay, so a true story. When I was working in middle school in Texas, this was around 2013, I had already been a librarian for like 9 years at this point. So thankfully, this happening, I kind of knew what to do, but this could happen just as easily on your very first day in the library. So I was in the library, it was in the morning, and it was before school, and it was probably about 10 minutes before the bell rang to release the students to go to their first period class. And I had a lot of students in there. It was packed every morning. We could have around 100 students easily, and it was usually just me in the library, the only adult. Woohoo! So on this particular morning, I didn't realize that someone had come in and another adult had come in. And I was talking to some students, and she sort of like poked me on the shoulder. And I turned around, and she has a book in her hands, and it's full of sticky notes. And she's waving it around, and she's fussing about the book. I honestly don't remember the book because after this one morning, I never heard from her again. So she never filed a challenge. But in the moment, I didn't know that. And she was just really upset. And she wasn't shouting, but her voice was high, and students were paying attention to what was going on. I have no idea how she ended up in the building. It was morning before school, so it was drop off. I don't know what their policies were about that at that time. But anyway, somehow she was in the library in the morning. So she was upset, and I clearly could not deal with her right then. So I just told her, we need to make an appointment. So you can do that down in the office with the secretary. But I really cannot talk to you right now. We do have policies on books that are being challenged. And so here they are. Boom. I knew where they were. I had them printed and copied and stapled together. And right there, here they are. Boom. And if you'll make an appointment with me and talk to me like later today or tomorrow, I can go through this with you and talk to you more about it. But right now is a terrible time. So she said, okay. And she took her policies and she left, and I never heard from her again. So this did happen. Thankfully, I had experienced challenges and things before, and I knew that I had the policy right there and had it to back me up, and I didn't have to sit there and sort of bumble around and try and figure out what to say. So really important when you have this situation come up. We're going to go over what to do and what to say and what not to say when this happens, because this could have escalated really quickly. It didn't, thankfully. It could have. So there's a lot of different people that might challenge a book, but I really like to focus on the first 4 because those are true stakeholders in the school: the parents, the teachers, the students, and the school administrators. Community members like business owners and stuff, I mean, they can technically challenge a book if they want to. They're all taxpayers. So churches and faith-based organizations and organized groups, the one I hear most about is Moms for Liberty. They're all able to challenge a book. They have the legal right to do it. They're all taxpayers and they have the right. But for me, I will really handle parents, teachers, students, and school administration. Like, to me, they have more of a stake in it. They're really there because they really care about the kids. It's not political. But one thing to keep in mind when you are talking to people is that they all have the right to be respected and to bring this up and to bring up discussions and talk about them. So you should not be rolling your eyes. You should not be disagreeing with them immediately. You really shouldn't disagree with them at all. Just, you need to stay neutral and respect their right to be able to do this. The best way to do that is to keep your mouth closed, let them talk, and have policies to back you up. Here's the policies, print it out. There they are. I have some for you. I'll put the link in the down below. So they're free. You can use them, edit them, do whatever you need to with them. So 2 types of challenges. I know probably a lot of you, if you're a librarian, already heard these words, but in case you haven't, an informal challenge is when a person, can be a student, teacher, principal, whoever, comes and speaks to another person in the school, usually you are the principal, maybe a teacher, about a concern that they have with the book. This happens all the time. I have dealt with countless informal challenges. They may not even be asking you to do anything. This may be just as simple as they want to let you know that on page 68 there's a bad word or whatever. The formal challenge is where the person wants action taken. And so in that case, this is where you really need to have written policies, because those policies will determine your actions that need to be taken. So this is a process, and paperwork is filed. There's a committee that's going to be formed, and a decision needs to be made. So this is much more involved. Most of your challenges are not going to be formal. They are going to be informal, and they will usually stop with that first conversation. So I'm going to help you kind of know how to keep it maybe from escalating into a formal challenge. Sometimes it's impossible, and it's okay if it goes to a formal challenge because you have policies, and that process exists for a reason, but the informal challenges are mostly what you're going to see. Okay, so I have experience with formal challenges. I have had 3 in my 15 years in the library. So I'm going to go through each one for you. They were all very different. They were all very interesting. Please don't be afraid of a formal challenge, because I have to say these were super interesting, all 3 of them. None of them got contentious, though, thankfully, so that can happen, but for me, they were just interesting. So the first one was a nonfiction book for the Olympics. It's like a history of the Olympics. This book was challenged at a pre-K through 4 school in Texas, in my school, and the part that was challenged was a when you have Greek mythology and like Roman stuff from ancient, there's going to be statues and they're going to be naked. Well, there was one statue in this book that was naked. It was a man, but it was really shadowy. It was really not detailed. Like, I didn't think it was that big a deal. But when I went to look up this book in Tidal Wave to see what the titles are or what grade levels are recommended, it was grades 5 through 8, and my school was only pre-K through 4. So we did not serve any of the grade levels that were recommended for this book. We decided to go ahead with the challenge anyway. Like, I would have been happy to just send this book up to a higher grade level, but we decided as a school, because this was a new school, that we wanted to go through this challenge and to sort of like soft test the process. So we did do a formal challenge with it. I was perfectly happy to send the book up to secondary, which is what happened. We all voted unanimously on that, and that's what happened. But it was nice to test the process, because it was really it really helped us sort of iron out how we wanted to do it. So it was a great thing that we did this book, and that this book was challenged. I don't have the actual cover because I don't remember. It seems like the book was just called The Olympics, but I don't remember the author. I can picture it. It looked like maybe it was a DK book. I'm not sure. It was a nonfiction about the Olympics. I just don't remember exactly. The second one was challenged at the same school. This one was very different from the first one. I didn't have an issue with this book personally. I was happy to, I understood where the parent was coming from, but at the same time, I didn't think it was like that big a deal, but other people did. So in this book, You Wouldn't Want to Be a Pirate's Prisoner. This is part of a series that we had, the whole series in the library, and it was pretty, somewhat popular with my 4th graders. So remember, this school was just pre-K through 4. I believe this one was set for grades, recommended for grades 4 through 7. So we did have grade 4. I do remember that we were within that. It might have even been 3 through 6. We were within the window of what was recommended on Follett for this book. But from professional reviews, like School Library Journal, Book List, Publishers Weekly. So this was checked out by a 1st grade student, and it had 2 images in it that the parent was concerned with. One was a man that was having, these are cartoons, so he had his toes, had ropes between his toes, and they were on fire. So it was like a torture method. And then the other image was a man that was sort of like this hanging, and he was being whipped, and you could see the whip marks on his back. They were not graphic, but it was there. So I did understand where this parent was coming from, that her child is a 1st grader. I think that's fine for 4th grade. It was what happened with pirates. It's not a pretty life. So anyway, I got it though. I do get it. So this book went through the process, and we did ultimately decide just this one, not the whole series, but we sent this one up to secondary as well. And then the third one, the most interesting of all of them, was challenged at the district level. This was when I was a middle school librarian, and this was not in my library, but it was in another middle school library in my district. And because it was challenged at all the middle schools and all the high schools in our district, because our high schools, I think all 3 high schools had it, they put together a district-wide committee. And so this one was really different experience, and it was super interesting. I feel like I could talk about this experience the whole day because it's so cool. But we had the library director for our district put together a huge committee. There were like 25 people. We had high school students, we had middle school students, middle school teachers, high school teachers, me, there was a high school librarian, library coordinator, principals. There were parents. It was a lot of people. We were in a room. It was all of us. And the concern here was, you can see on the cover there, the short little skirt that the girl is wearing. And I believe there might have been some violence. I don't know. I think the short skirt was more the problem. So anyway, this one was really interesting. And the ultimate decision was to take it out of the middle schools but leave it in the high schools. So that really cool process. None of these 3 were anything more than interesting. They were not scary for me. They were not like, I'm going to be on the news because this is really big deal. But that is because we had really strong policies in both of these districts, and that the principals understood them, and everybody was on the same page. So that's sort of like the underlying thing I want to leave you with today is everybody's got to be on the same page. It will really, really help make this smooth. Okay, so we're going to start with informal challenges. This is where someone either calls or emails or has a conversation with you, maybe pulls you aside in the hallway or comes to your library in the morning when you're really, really busy about a book's content. So this may or may not be direct contact with you. This could be the principal coming to you and saying, look, I had a parent call me this morning about this book, and they may not have talked to you at all. Many formal challenges, probably most formal challenges, will start here. They start with the informal, and if it can't be resolved with that conversation, then it'll go to the formal challenge, which is the process, the paperwork. But most of these informal challenges will stop here. You will have a discussion, a conversation about it. A whole lot of the time, people just want to be heard. They want you to know. They want to make sure you know, and they don't need any further action taken. And that's what happens most of the time. I've had countless informal challenges. I don't know, in 15 years, maybe 100. I don't know, a lot. If you have a good library, you're probably going to get them. So informal challenges, these are just some tips that I have for you. It's very possible you'll be approached at a time that you cannot talk to those people, talk to the parent or whoever's coming in, like when I was in the library in that morning. So when that happens, or maybe you just are not in the right mental space to deal with it, ask them to make an appointment with you, or come back next period, or come back after lunch, or whatever. Don't make the appointment in 2 weeks, but make it soon. But you can, it is perfectly within your right to tell them, can you make an appointment with me? This also helps if they're kind of upset about it. It helps them calm down. It helps you kind of take a breath and find your policies and all that. So this is a really good idea to just have them schedule an appointment with you. The first thing you want to do is check the professional reviews. If the professional reviews do not back you up, like in my situation where that book was, the Olympics book was grades 5 through 8, and my school didn't have any of those grades, it's not probably going to survive a formal challenge anyway. So in that situation, for me, I would make the professional decision to just move that up to middle school, because it's not recommended for my grades. So I wouldn't have ordered it myself. It wasn't. It was in the library when I started there, but it wasn't one that I would order because it was not recommended for my grade levels. So check those professional reviews. You want to come in knowing what those say. And by professional reviews, I mean Book List, SLJ, Publishers Weekly. Check Tidal Wave. It'll have all of those, and they all have recommendations for grade levels. You can look at like Common Sense Media, but please don't use that as your only source, because that is not a professional source. That's just people who have opinions about a book. It's sort of like using Goodreads for your professional source. That's not a professional source. You can check though, you can consult those things. When you do talk to the person, you want to listen and give them time to talk. Do not speak, just listen to them. If you don't agree with them, it doesn't matter. Just keep your mouth shut, listen, and be respectful. Do not react to anything that they say. Don't say like, oh, well, I would never order a book like that for the library. Or, oh, I can't believe that book is in the library. Even if you can't believe that book's in the, maybe it's completely inappropriate and you know it. Listen, don't react. Just okay, and listen. All right. Yeah, let them talk. A lot of times they just want to be heard. Be sure to say thank you. When, like I said, I really believe that it is, especially those four groups, the parents, administrators, students, and teachers, it really is their right to say something if they are not happy with something the school is doing. Like, it's really, that's a good thing that they're saying something, and it helps to build trust. So they should never feel like they can't bring up a concern. So you want to say thank you to those parents. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for taking an interest in our school and our students. The political groups, the churches, and the Moms for Liberty and all that, I don't necessarily care if you say thank you to them, but that's because it's political. But the real stakeholders, the teachers, the students, the administrators, and the parents, definitely you need to say thank you and be super duper respectful, because they're coming from a place of concern and caring, even if you don't agree. So ask them what they would like you to do. So a lot of times informal challenges are going to end right here. So they say, I have this concern, and here's my concern. And you say, okay, thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. What would you like me to do? And you might even suggest that if you would like me to restrict your child's access to this book, I can do that, or to this series, I can do that. I've only had that happen one time in my entire career, but it did happen. And this is really good because they have the right to say what their child checks out. They don't have a right to say what everyone's child checks out. So one caveat for that, if you are restricting access to a certain book, you want to make sure that it's not to all books like this. So like if they don't want them to read Harry Potter, which actually happened early in my career when Harry Potter was super controversial, they can restrict the access to the Harry Potter series, but not to all books with magic in them or all books with witches in them. They can't restrict access to all LGBT books. Really, that's going to be a hard no, because you can't keep up with that, and it's just no, big no. You don't want to be responsible for all that. But one book, yes, you can just put a note in Destiny, and there you go. It's easy peasy. So if these conversations make you uncomfortable, that is totally normal. They do not make me comfortable when I tell the story about what happened in that library in Texas in that morning. And even though it had a very easy outcome and it was fine, my heart starts beating, still telling the story. Heart starts beating, sweating a little bit, like it's scary. And especially in that situation, because I had so many students in there and they all like, oh, everybody's paying attention to what's going on. So it isn't fun, but just keep in mind that, again, it is their right to bring up a concern, and it's good that they're involved. So make sure that the things that are going to protect you is knowing your policies thoroughly, having policies that are written down, being professional and letting them talk. Don't make any like super strong judgments. Don't make them feel bad for coming to you. Okay? Respect them. If you're a paraprofessional working in the library and you don't report to a librarian, you're just the only one working in there, which definitely happens. In my opinion, I don't think that you should be dealing with these at all. I think you just refer them to the principal, that this is way above your pay grade. You are not paid enough to deal with this, and because these can get really contentious. So I would say, you can say like, here's the policy, and you can listen to them, but then it really needs to go to the principal and you're out, because it can be very contentious. You don't want to end up involved like in that situation. Any meeting that you have with them that is not right now, if they come back after lunch or whatever, invite your administrator. If they're able to come, that would be very helpful, so that they know what's going on. If they can't because it's next period or they've got something else going on, like, it's fine, but make sure that they know the how it went, so that they're not blindsided. When you talk to the parent or whoever, listen carefully. Don't speak, don't react, don't agree, don't disagree, just listen. If anyone gets angry with you and starts to yell or curse, or you feel threatened, the meeting is over. In the future, I would not meet with that person again without an administrator present. You just should not be feeling threatened at work. That is not okay. And yelling and cursing is scary, and you didn't do anything to be yelled at to deserve that. So definitely stop the conference. This is it. This conference is over. We can meet again if you'd like, but my principal's going to be present. Okay, so you've now had the meeting with the parent, whether it's just in the hallway or they've come back later or whatever, and the informal challenge is done, and they've decided it's been resolved. They don't want to do anything, or they're happy for you to just restrict their child's access or whatever. So after that, the first thing you want to do is tell your administrator as soon as you can. You don't want the parent to, like, you think the parent has left and they're happy with the outcome, and then they go home and they call the administrator 30 minutes later, and the administrator doesn't even know what they're talking about. So you have to tell them it's not fair for them to be blindsided, and I'm sure this happens to administrators all the time. So please make sure that you let them know and give them a heads up. After the meeting, you want to write down what was discussed so you can remember if you need to, and if appropriate, follow up with the parent with an email and CC your principal. So what I mean by if appropriate, if you've come up with some kind of plan that is just for that child, like you've restricted the child's account, or you looked at the book and maybe it's a YA book and it's in middle school and it's really obvious that it's not going to withstand a challenge, you can just tell them that. So whatever your action is, if you feel like it's going to end here, then I would email them to follow up and then CC the principal to let them know, so that the parent knows that you have done whatever it is you said you were going to do. So this is an example. Dear parent, whoever, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and share your concerns about the title of the book. As we discussed, I have decided to move this to the middle school. I have decided to put a note on your child's account, whatever. We have decided to leave the book for now, whatever it is. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need anything further, and then your name, and that's it. That just is another way to put it in writing that you've contacted this parent and hopefully everything's good. And if it's not, you'll hear about it from this. Okay, so that's informal challenges. We're going to move on to formal now. So these are the more serious. If you get one of these, you're going to remember it, and could be very interesting, could be very scary. So we're going to try and make it not scary as much as possible. So if you have any of these situations, you need to give them the formal challenge paperwork. So the first situation is they say that they want to take it further. They want to take it to the school board. They want to have a committee look at it. They don't want to do whatever it is you're suggesting. This is the next step. If they're not happy to simply restrict their own child's access to that material. If they want the materials removed for everyone, and it may not be everyone in the school. Maybe they don't want anyone in their child's class to get it because they're worried their child might see it, or they don't want anybody in the grade level to get it, or they think it should just be for this grade and up, whatever. That they can't do that. That needs to be in a process. If they are irate, angry, yelling, or threatening, I just give them the packet. I'm just not paid enough to deal with all that. No way. And in the future, I wouldn't deal with that person without an administrator present. It's not worth it. You never know. People can be unhinged. You never know. So just give them the paperwork, go file the challenge. We'll deal with it. And if they just don't want to talk to you about it, like you say, well, what's going on? And they're like, I want to talk to an administrator. I want to, whatever. So they don't want to talk, or they don't want to talk about it. They just want to file the paperwork. There's the paperwork. This process exists for a reason. You are not a gatekeeper to the process. So just give them the paperwork. It's not something that you need to decide if they get it. They get it if they ask for it. So a few recommendations for the formal challenge. This is so important, y'all. This should be a board-approved process. You should not be writing your own papers and just willy-nilly giving them out to people. This needs to be something that, even if you're in a private school, you should have some sort of board or some sort of advisory committee or something. But this needs to be approved by them. They need to be clearly written, step by step. Transparent, which means I think they should be on the website, and reviewed regularly. So it doesn't have to be every year, but the board needs to look at these policies every probably 2 or 3 years and just make sure that they're still current. I believe the policies should be posted on the district website under board policy pages. If you have board policy pages on your district website, they are probably already there. Check though, because sometimes the board doesn't put their policies online, and I think this particular policy needs to be online. So because this is something that really directly affects a lot of people. So if it's not on there or you can't find it, I would ask, hey, can we put this on here? This is important, and we need to be able to see it. I just think it helps to be transparent. The school librarians should review the process with all your school administrators. That would be your principal, your vice principals, annually, maybe even your counselors. So I would sit down with them at the beginning of the school year, after everything kind of dies down, 2-3 weeks into the school year. Sit down with them. Give them a copy ahead of time. This is the policies. Please read it, and maybe highlight some sections that you really want to talk about. This makes sure that you are all on the same page and that you all know, A, that there is a policy, and B, that you're going to follow the policy and you're all aware of the policy. This can also tell you how supportive your admin is going to be if you do find yourself in the challenge. And if you believe that they're not going to be very supportive, you might handle your challenges a little differently. You might be a little more careful, because you got to protect yourself too. It's just the reality. Also, I suggest that at least once a year, if not twice a year, you have a short meeting with your staff. You can do this during a regular staff meeting. Ask for 10 minutes to talk to the staff about what they should do if a parent or someone approaches them about a book that they're teaching or a book that is in the library. This will happen, and they are usually kind of like, I have no idea. They don't know there's a policy. They might say something that they shouldn't be saying. So please make sure that they know what to do. My suggestion is that they refer the parent to the librarian or to the principal, and that's it, and not talk about it, and just tell them, if you have a parent come up to you, we have policies for this, but you are not privy to that. They can read them if they want to, but they're probably not going to. Just refer them to the librarian, refer them to the principal, and don't worry about it. Don't agree, don't disagree, but the staff needs to know what to do. Designate a particular person to receive the paperwork. So this is something that I think should be written in the policy, that when somebody fills out the paperwork to challenge a book formally, that it's handed back in, or it's turned in a certain way. So it needs to be handed to the librarian specifically or to the principal specifically, not put in their kid's backpack, not handed to the teacher, not handed to the school secretary. If it's important, they need to hand it to you. It doesn't mean that's always going to happen. They're still going to do those things, and you hopefully will still get that paperwork. But if they say, well, I put it in my child's backpack, you can say, well, it does say in the policies that you need to give it to us. We did not receive it. So I need you to fill it out again because we didn't get it. And just give it to me. Make sure you give it to me this time. So really important that they give it to you or the principal, and that's it. If you did receive paperwork that was not directly handed to you from the parent or to the principal from the parent, like a school secretary brings it to you, I personally would email the parent and say, hi, I just wanted to let you know that I did receive this and we are starting the process. That just confirms to them, because if they go and, like, let's say they put it in their child's backpack and they go weeks and weeks and they don't hear anything from you, they're just going to get more angry. So I think it's really important that they know that you received it 100%. So if you are not the direct recipient, either you or the principal you need to email them and tell them you received it. Really important that you act quickly. Again, don't make them wait weeks. This process I think it should be delineated in the policies. This is a 3-week process or whatever. So after you receive the paperwork, go within the next 24, 48 hours, whatever, to the principal and talk about it and put together a committee. The committee generally, you can specify in your policies who is on the committee. For my schools, it was one teacher of that grade level, one teacher of a different grade level, myself as the librarian, the principal, I think a vice principal was on it, and then the president of the PTA was on it. So, and yeah, I said teacher, I think. So yeah, two teachers, one from a lower grade level of the child's grade level and one from another grade level. And then be discreet. So you don't need to be talking about the challenge to like your students or other teachers or other parents, parent volunteers. It's just not any of their business. And that can get, imagine if you're the parent that challenged this and now other parents are asking you about it, like, it's just not professional. So don't talk about it. We don't talk about the book challenges except to the committee. So my recommended process, this comes from ALA. I did not invent this. But this is the process that I think that I have followed in my schools, and I think you should follow as well. So you receive the paperwork. The formal challenge is now started. If the parent is right there, check to ensure that they have completely filled out the paperwork and signed it. This will just slow it down. And if they sent it in and it wasn't complete, you need to email them and say, look, it's not complete. You need to finish it. But if they're standing right there, just check it right there and then, so that they don't have to come back and fool with it. Anytime you can make it easier, that's good. It's a good thing. So if they, like I mentioned before, if they didn't hand those papers to you directly, then email them to confirm that you did receive them, and then the process is beginning. Next thing you want to do is, if you didn't already, is read those professional reviews of the book and make sure that you are backed up. If you are not backed up, if you have no grade levels that are recommended in your school for this book, to me, the challenge can stop there. You can go through with it like my school did. We wanted to test the challenge process. You could do that if you want. We were a new school, so we hadn't done it before. So if you want to do that, it's perfectly fine. But I think the challenge can stop here as well, because for me, I'm not going to support that book being in the library if it's not recommended for those grades. Meet with your principal as soon as you can to form a committee and look at your policy for who needs to be on that committee. Each person on the committee does need to read the book, and I also, in my paperwork, I think the parent needs to read the book as well, and I think that's what ALA recommends, that the parent needs to read the book, or whoever is challenging the book, not necessarily a parent, needs to have read the book entirely, and each person on the committee needs to read the entire book as well. So it can take a little while. If you're on a high school committee, you might give a couple weeks for people to read the book. So you may need to do some interlibrary loan to make sure you have enough copies of the book. Maybe get it on audio if you're able to. but make it so that those teachers can easily access that book, the people on the committee. Try to meet as a committee within a week or two of challenge paperwork. Do it as quickly as you can, but give people time to read as well. The committee will meet, and I've got in my paperwork that is going to go with this. I have a form that they can fill out. The committee members fill out, everybody signs, and makes a decision on what's going to happen. It may be that you have to meet more than one time. Maybe you don't make a decision on the first meeting. That's okay. Once you do that, your policy should state what happens after. So your written paperwork is generally filed either with the district or it's kept on file in the library or both. Whatever your policy recommends is what you need to do. And then at this point, we need to tell the person who challenged the book what is going to happen and what happens if they disagree. So this does not come from the librarian. This needs to come from the head honcho, the principal of the school. Emails or send some kind of written notification to the parent about what the decision was, specifically saying what we decided to do as a committee. Some policies may say the decision of the committee is final, and that's fine. If they say that, then here's the decision. Committee decision is final, so that's it, and it's done. A lot of schools will have another process. If they disagree with this decision, they can escalate it higher to the board or whatever. That should be in the policy as well, and then whatever. And then at that point, it's really out of your hands. That's going to be passed on to someone else. You've done all you need to do. I have a lot of international followers because I was an international librarian, but if you are in the US, the ALA, American Library Association, does ask that we report the formal challenge and the outcome. They keep track of it. It's not like you're in trouble or anything. They keep track of these things for statistics purposes. Every year during Banned Books Week, which is at the end of September, they come out with a list of the most frequently challenged books and how many were challenged and what states got the most challenges and stuff. Your school's not in trouble or anything. You're not in trouble. It's just for like informational purposes. But it's a good idea to report those challenges to the ALA. I have a link at the end of this presentation that and I guess I can put it in the comments too, to the ALA to report. Yeah, I mentioned that the parents should be reading the book. The challenge policies, I believe, should be, again, board approved, definitely. And I think they should be posted to the board policy webpage just for transparency purposes. The librarian and the school administrators should review policies together every year, at least once, maybe twice. And then there should be some kind of presentation with the school staff about what to do if they're approached. Don't leave them hanging. They need to know. This is important. So I have sample policies. I have them linked here, but I will link them in the comments as well. They're free. There is nothing on there that's copyrighted or anything. You can edit them as however you want to edit them. Make sure that if you are starting with fresh policies that you get board approval. Don't just say, these are the policies, and that's it. Get board approval on them first. Get board approval, even do them, before you even do them, and then show them what you want to do, and then you can, if they want you to do it, you can. These are 100% based on ALA policy recommendations. So I didn't make this stuff up, but this is what, like, ideally you should do. So you can change them if you want to, but this is what ALA recommends. This is the cover sheet for the packet that I give parents, which is in the packet that I have linked. So this just looks really professional. You put the cover sheet on it, you have the packet, here you go, you staple it together. Here's exactly what's going to happen. It's short, it's like 3 pages. So this is like written down what the policies are. You can change these however you want to. But the benefits of having good policies is that you are professional and you are seen as a professional. You know what to do. You have a plan. I know that you're probably still going to be like really nervous like I am and anxious about it, but it helps you to be able to relax because you're supported by your policies and you're following your policies and you know what you're supposed to do. You're not just sort of deer in the headlights panicking like, oh my gosh, you know, parents in here yelling at me, what am I going to do? You have a plan and you have policies that are going to back you up, hopefully. If you are finding yourself in a situation that you are having a book challenged or you're dealing with challenges, definitely want to get some support. Reach out to a trusted librarian in your district. If you have a library director, that's awesome. I hope you have a library director. They're really important. They definitely need to be part of this process. Your administrators need to be part of this process, and you need to talk to them a lot about it until it's done. The ALA Office for Intellectual Freedom, this is what they do. So you can reach out to them and they can provide you some support. There's also lots and lots of Facebook groups out there for librarians that are awesome. These are 3 that I'm in that I really like. I feel like they're not, Facebook groups can get kind of toxic and stuff. I feel like these were like really nice professional, mostly Facebook pages, but people can ask questions and get a lot of good answers. These are just more helpful links, mostly to the ALA pages. There's a lot on the ALA site. It's great. And then if you're curious about those headlines that I put on the first page, these are the links. Or on, what is it, page 4, slide 4? Yeah, slide 4. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen.